So, good morning. It's early. Yesterday's video was Mike Bickle's 200-year-old sex cult. Right now, they've got several things popping up about them wanting a third-party investigation. Well, the same news people who were talking about the sex cult right now are the same news people who exposed the cult 11 years ago.
Words tonight about Tyler Deaton from the International House of Prayer University. His wife, Bethany, is the nurse who police first thought committed suicide last week. Man told police he did it and that Deaton's husband told him to. Tyler Deaton was involved with the International House of Prayer, and we've learned that IHOP leaders knew Deaton was heading up a separate group where religious experiences included communal sex. Today, the IHOP University released this statement. It reads, quote, "Knowing what we know now, we deeply regret our failure to discern the nature of Deaton's alleged practices. We further regret his admission to IHOPU 4 years ago and all connection he had with our organization." The full statement is 2 pages long. You can read it on our website, kshb.com.
Okay, so I'm going to rewind this to the beginning of this clip in a second, but this says that IHOP leadership drove this man down to the police station, dropped him off for him to be able to give his testimony of him being the murderer.
First-degree murder, but today his attorney had a very different story to tell.
Driven to the police station by representatives of his church community, Micah told a fictional account that was bizarre, nonsensical, and most importantly, untrue. They were statements of a distraught and confused young man under extreme psychological pressures as a result of his friend Bethany's untimely suicide and the sudden removal of his spiritual leader, Tyler Deaton, from their extremely close-knit religious community.
Notice that lawyer is all the world's a stage and all the people players. She's standing in front of a brick wall. While she's giving this testimony, she's the liar for this situation. Let's go back to the beginning of what's going on. This is still 11 years ago. This is still inside IHOP.
Attorneys from Micah Moore say the murder confession he gave police was completely made up. They contend 27-year-old Bethany Deaton's death was a suicide. Beth Vaughn spoke with the attorney this afternoon after what would have been Moore's preliminary hearing. What happened, Beth?
Yeah, Elizabeth, the state chose to bypass a preliminary hearing today in hopes of taking this murder case to a grand jury. The victim in this case, Bethany Deaton, was found dead in a van with a bag over her face and a suicide note and pills by her side. Obviously, police originally thought it was a suicide. 2 weeks later, Micah Moore confessed to this killing, saying he was part of a religious group led by Bethany's husband. Moore told police part of this group's activities included sexually assaulting Bethany Deaton repeatedly, and that's why he chose to kill her, adding only that Bethany Deaton's husband told him to do it. Moore is charged with first-degree murder, but today his attorney had a very different story to tell.
Driven to the police station by representatives of his church community, Micah told a fictional account that was bizarre, nonsensical, and most importantly, untrue. They were statements of a distraught and confused young man under extreme psychological pressures as a result of his friend Bethany's untimely suicide and the sudden removal of his spiritual leader, Tyler Deaton, from their extremely close-knit religious community.
It's important to note that Tyler Deaton is not charged in his wife's death. Now, coming up tonight at 5, Tyler and Bethany Deaton, along with Micah Moore, all had ties to a local church whose preacher is now teaching its members about cult awareness. I'll explain tonight at 5. Back to you, Elizabeth.
All right, this story gets more complex and stranger every day. We'll see you at 5 o'clock. Thanks, Beth.
So, while Brother John and the IHOP, the men who are defending the accused women right now, or the women that are doing the accusations, if you guys want to be able to add to the third party's information, you should go to call Jackson County Sheriff's Office at this phone number or write to sheriff@jackson.gov. I don't know that there is a right to be able to take their notes, but this case was a sexual case at IHOP 11 years ago that will possibly tell us whose cars were lined up outside of these people's house that could give us more information about what's going on right now by using this information. So this phone number right here, I think, is probably key. If not, I'd go here and we're trying to get all the pieces for the third party investigation. And one of the accusations against Mike Bickle is as old as 26 years old. And Stephen Strange, that's defending Bickle right now, is saying that because it's 26 years old and Bickle didn't start his International House of Prayer until 1994, that it doesn't have anything to do with his Mike Bickle's he wasn't in charge of a church at that point. But we already showed that Mike Bickle had been told in 1983 that he was going to be running a movement by Bob Jones. So all of these characters all connect together. Let's go back and hear what this part is from 11 years ago.
Former and current members of a religious group at the center of a murder investigation are being asked now to come forward. KMBC 9's Haley Harrison says Jackson County detectives are urging those people to help with the investigation. Haley?
Well, Kelly, this evening, the investigation into Bethany Deaton's murder isn't finished. In fact, just this afternoon, detectives here at the Jackson County Sheriff's Office were interviewing several people with close ties to Tyler Deaton's religious community. It was the religious fringe group that operated under what a Kansas City church calls a veil of secrecy.
They never spoke to anybody. They just kept to themselves.
And neighbors tell us a couple nights each week, cars would line their block, visitors to Tyler and Bethany Deaton's Grandview home.
He just figured that they were just having Bible study. You know, we knew they were kind of, a little quirky, but they never bothered anybody. Never.
Few know what happened during those meetings, but investigators believe there were people who were shunned, kicked out, and ostracized from Tyler Deaton's religious community. Detectives urge people with knowledge of past or present criminal activity in the group to come forward by calling 816-524-4302 or emailing sheriff@jacksongov.org. Friday, Micah Moore was the first to speak up, telling police Deaton ordered him to murder his wife Bethany, afraid she'd speak up about being sexually abused by members of the group. There's a lot of manipulation that goes along with that and coercion, and so just a lot more complex interventions are needed. The Metropolitan Organization to Counter Sexual Assault is prepared to counsel people who may have been victimized by sexual abuse in the organization. It's a very private and intrusive act, and there hasn't always been a great deal of support for people, but there is.
So, Brother John, there may already be a third-party investigation that took place 11 years ago that we can find notes about that investigation.
Mox is here to sexual abuse in the organization, so just a lot more complex interventions are needed. The Metropolitan Organization to Counter Sexual Assault is prepared to counsel people who may have been victimized.
We may be able to find some of the victims by going through these guys.
By sexual abuse in the organization. It's a very private and intrusive act, and there hasn't always been a great deal of support for people, but there is. Mox is here to help. And tonight we have posted those phone numbers to the Moxa crisis hotlines in Kansas and in Missouri. You will find those on our website, kmbc.com. Reporting live in Lee's Summit, Haley Harrison, KMBC 9.
Lovers say what started as a religious devotion among friends became a dangerous cult. The newlywed was found dead near her Kansas City home. Correspondent Troy Roberts investigates for tomorrow night's 48 Hours.
She was just glowing. Everything that she ever dreamed of had come true for her.
Carol Liveline recalled her daughter Bethany's wedding day in August 2012 as the happiest day of her young life.
My plan was to live the rest of my life with Bethany.
2 months after her wedding to Tyler Deaton, she was dead.
Sheriff's deputies found Bethany Deaton's body in a car with a plastic bag over her head.
Next to Bethany was an empty bottle of sleeping pills and a goodbye note. But something about the suicide wasn't quite right.
This is a newlywed. Why newlywed commits suicide by herself in a lake?
Detective Penny Cole of the Jackson County Sheriff's Office immediately began investigating.
So, when we're looking for proofs of the cult, we should probably go and talk to...
Why newlywed commits suicide by herself in a lake?
Detective Penny Cole of the Jackson County Sheriff's Office.
Detective Penny Cole will probably have some more information about what we need for the sexual assault stuff.
Immediately began investigating.
When I spoke with Tyler, I did not see the reaction that I expected from a newlywed at all. And it kind of made the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
Detective Cole soon learned that Bethany was part of a group of devout young Christians who called themselves the Community, led by her husband, Tyler. Bose Harrington was a member.
God told Tyler that our group was specially chosen to show the rest of the world what it looked like to live in community, to be really Christian, to be radical.
The group had formed in college, but after graduating, they moved to Kansas City to study and pray at a church called the International House of Prayer, known by the acronym IHOP. But their earnest prayer group soon evolved into something much more alarming.
It became a full-blown cult, and a very dangerous cult.
Bose says Tyler told members what to wear, when to eat, and even controlled the romantic relationships among their group.
They did as they were told. They didn't make decisions on their own.
Some of the things he was saying were incoherent and borderline insane. But when you're...
So those other videos were from 11 years ago. This video was from 8 years ago.
There... It's perfectly normal.
You've been described as a cult leader.
Okay.
True?
I don't think so, no.
Well, investigators began to unravel the secrets within this group, including questions of Tyler's sexual orientation.
Bethany and I's relationship was definitely strained, but just because it was strained doesn't mean I was murderous.
This investigation would be turned on its head with a community member confessing to the murder.
Why did you come forward?
Only to later recant.
I don't want revenge and I don't want vengeance. I want justice, but I want truth.
Troy Roberts is here. What is it that the police saw at the scene that made them suspicious?
Well, she was found with her eyes wide open, which is unusual for someone who overdosed. Also, she was taking over-the-counter sleeping medication. She was a nurse, so she had access to lethal drugs. And also, they found thank you notes from her wedding that she was in the process of writing. She was a newlywed. Mm-hmm. Why would she take her life?
I'm confused. And why would somebody confess to murder and then recant? So questions will be answered.
We'll find that Saturday night.
Yeah, Saturday night.
Quite a story. Thanks, Troy.
Thank you.
You